as the Carolina Hurricanes set their sights on the NHL draft and free agency, there is a lot of room for this team to grow this upcoming offseason. One of those being in free agency with one of the biggest names to hit the market in recent memory. And this should be one of the Hurricanes should be going for. That man, Mitch Marner.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a good Tuesday show for you guys, as this whole show is basically talking about why the Carolina Hurricanes should be a great fit for Mitch Marner and why they should be bringing him here, and where does he necessarily fit in the lineup if they are able to sign him. We'll do all that and more as we go through this episode. And the thing with why Marner is probably the most likely fit for the Hurricanes, because his name has been thrown around a lot, and the Hurricanes have been one of those big name teams. Now, the Hurricanes every year, whether it be the trade deadline or free agency, are always linked to players. And that's because Tom Dundon always wants to make sure that his guys are doing their due diligence and always being in conversations with the big name guys. That's every offseason, that's every trade deadline. That should be no surprise for anyone at this point. Now, can the Hurricanes get it done? Well, in the recent past, they've made some moves. Obviously, we saw the last trade deadline. We saw the last couple off seasons of them making some big moves. Now, with the cap going up to $95.5 million, the Hurricanes are going to have $28.4 million open in cap space to where they could go out there and get some big name guys. Now, Elliot Freeman on 32 Thoughts podcast did say that the Hurricanes are looking to go for more heavier guys, heavier players in free agency this offseason. Also, too, don't forget the Hurricanes, and what everyone always thinks about these guys when it comes to the playoffs is they need elite goal scoring. They need a guy who's a game breaker on goals. Now, Andrei Svechnikov did have 8 goals for the Hurricanes. Sebastian Aho had 7, and Seth Jarvis, had 6. But if you're looking for someone who's really going to be a guy that's going to go, Austin Matthews levels, Connor McDavid levels of putting up points every year, Nathan McKinnon, stuff like that. They need to go get that guy, that superstar who's going to go and get you points. Now, one of those guys, and I know, we're talking about Mitch Marner, has always been someone in terms of the playoffs where people kind of question his goal scoring there when it comes to that. Now, in the last few off seasons, he does have, 2 goals this past, playoff in 13 games. For the Maple Leafs, as they went to Game 7, round 2, 1 goal the year before, 3 and 2 and stuff like that. If you look at his regular season, he does have 27 goals, this past season, 26 the year before, 30 the year before that. But if you look at 21, 22, he did have 35 goals. So he's someone who does score a good amount of points. But here's the thing that too, his point totals have what's really been eye-opening to where it's like, okay, yeah, he does have the scoring, but it's also his playmaking, which will go a long way to help the Hurricanes as well. Because I think like you're looking at where they also need playmakers to set their guys up. This is where Marner comes in. Now, 97 points in 21-22, 99 in 22-23. He did miss some games last season, where he played in 69, but he still had 85 points in 69 games. That's well over 100 points if he played a full season. And then this, 24-25, 102 points. First time ever hitting 100, 27 goals and 75 assists. Now, why do I think Marner would be a fit here? Well, James Mirtle of The Athletic did his list of ranking all 32 teams and being of, most likely to get them, long shots, so on and so forth. The first team he brought up in his article on The Athletic, the most likely fits. First team, the Carolina Hurricanes. This is what he said. No contending team will have a bigger need for a star offensive player and as much cap space as the Hurricanes, who figure to be aggressive this July 1, giving another disappointing exit. That's here and there. Marner turned down a trade to Carolina near the March 7th trade deadline, but with a no movement clause and the fact that he was about to become a father, that made a lot of sense on a personal side, which makes a lot of sense. When you're ready to have a kid, it's tough to get traded to another team right at that deadline. So it makes sense of why that was a no-go at that point. That situation hasn't dampened the Hurricanes' spirit, but will Marner be interested if they are the highest bidder in free agency? And I've heard this a lot recently too of why Marner would fit well with Carolina. And a lot of it being is the noise in Carolina is a lot different compared to Toronto. I know everyone's like going to be, oh, well, it's just soft because the media and the fans and this, that, or the other. Yes, Toronto's a hotbed. It makes sense. But in Carolina, the fans are just as diehard for the Hurricanes. But I think it's what makes guys really love being here and staying here. It's the fact that, yeah, Hurricanes fans are diehards, but also they'll let you live your life. And I think that's why you see guys like Jalen Chatfield are here, even through the offseason, why Jacob Slavin and his family live in Raleigh full time. Also, why you have like Cam Ward, Justin Williams, Rod Brind'Amour, a bunch of the alumni live in Raleigh still. I mean, Shane Willis has been here ever since he got picked up by the team and then came back. Of course, it helps that, his family's from there. His wife's side of the family's from here. But something about being in Raleigh really helps these guys stay here for a long time. I think that's something that would really benefit Mitch, and why him coming to Carolina, not just for the fact that you could go get the money, because Carolina's got, like I said, $28.4 million in cap space, so they can give him whatever he wants. Because per AFP Analytics, and I've used these guys all last offseason, they're absolutely great with their contract projections and stuff like that. So they said for Mitch Marner, they're projecting he's going to get a 7-year deal at $12.952 million, which would be a projected cap of 13.56%. Now, that does sound high, but remember, the Hurricanes have 28.4. That still gives them enough to go and get other pieces around him as well. But you're able to do what you wish you could have done with Jake Gensel. Jake Gensel wanted to stay in Carolina, but the contract situation with the cap didn't really work out that way. And of course, with Slavin and Jarvis's contracts also coming, they got to figure out how that was going to work out. But now with Marner and the cap going up at the right time, now the Hurricanes could go get their superstar player that they really want with the space that's necessary because they have enough to do it. I think that puts them in a good spot, even as a contender. So one, he's going to get paid what he wants, and that's even with AFP Analytics and their great cap projections. They're usually within about 2 or 3% of what the deal is, so they're absolutely great. And the fact of the situation of living in Raleigh, you will still get attention on you because you're Mitch Marner, you're a superstar player, but you get that Southern charm of fans are going to recognize you, but they're going to give you the opportunity to just live your life. And I think that's completely different to when when Rod Brind'Amour first came to Carolina in 2000, where a lot of people didn't know about the Hurricanes. Now it's a situation where the Hurricanes really thrive, not just in North Carolina, but the Carolinas as a whole. And the fact that the fans are such diehards, but they will also let you be you. I think with a young family that Mitch has, and just being able to have enough noise on him to get a lot of recognition, but not enough to where it's a constant thing that's always in the back of his mind or always something that could be a distraction. So I think that will help a long way too. And the fact that Mirtle thinks that the Hurricanes are like one of the top teams, I think goes a long way. And I think that's why Marner would be a great fit, because while his goal scoring is up there in the regular season, his points totals are really good too. When you look at the assists and points overall, he's had a bunch of 80 plus points the last 4 seasons, 3 in the 90, 1 over 100 points. That goes a long way. I know the playoff numbers aren't as appealing, but also given it too, there's always that added pressure every year in the playoffs with the Maple Leafs. And it's just one of those things where it's just this weird cloud that's over him. I think a change of scenery would give him the opportunity to break whatever that mojo is of the playoffs in Toronto. Come to Carolina where the Hurricanes are successful every single year. Give him the proper ice time and the line mates that will really work with him in the overall team aspect. I think he would fit the system. Now, why should the Hurricanes target him? Well, stick around. We'll talk about it more here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Now, it's the satisfying crack of opening each shell. It's like a snack meditation. And rather, if you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as just as you do. So get snacking, get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we talked about why Mitch Marner could be a likely fit for the Hurricanes in terms of the fact that every single season over the last 4 years, he's had multiple, seasons of having 80 or more points. If you go back to 2018-19, he also had 94 in that time period as well, and that's even counting the 2 weird shortened seasons where 67 points in 59 games, 67 and 55. Outside of his first 2 seasons in the league back at 16-17, 17-18, where he still had 61 and 69 points, Mitch Marner, for the most part, or practically as the whole part, he has been an over a point per game player since 2018-19. 94 and 82, 67 and 59, 67 and 55, 97 and 72, 99 and 80, 85 and 69, and this past season, 102 in 81 games. And the thing is, too, penalty minutes wise, he's never touched 30 outside of his rookie season where he had 38. The highest he's gotten to is 28 back in the 22-23 season. Last season, 14. The thing with Mitch is his availability is his best ability on top of everything else he already does. We all know about the fact that his goal scoring is pretty solid. He's a great playmaker. He does score goals. Like I said, 27 this past season, 26 year before, even playing in 69 games due to being hurt, 30 in 22, 23, and even 35 in 21, 22. Now, Seth Jarvis this past season had 32. So Mitch would be kind of around that range of where, Aho and Jarvis were. However, with the fact that you also got a lot of the assist as well on Marner's side of things, I think they'll go a long way because the fact that you have a really good playmaker who can score goals, but also know how to set up his teammates pretty well and put the puck on their stick. I think that's why if you look at the Hurricanes, it's always been go get your superstar forward. And yes, they wanted to go get Mikko Rantanen, and obviously no, it didn't work because it sounded like Mikko didn't really want to be in Carolina. It sounded like he wanted to be in the Western Conference. That being said, Mitch has been in the Eastern Conference his entire career because, of course, he's been with the Maple Leafs the whole time. But I think this is where the Hurricanes can be, okay, we got the money. This is the situation. You see that we're consistently good. The noise isn't as bad. You can still be you and play your game, and you play in where you're going to be with Rod Brind'Amour. And, of course, a good young core of, you got Jarvis, Svechnikov, Stankoven, Blake, Nikishin, all of those guys, plus the vets that are always been consistently there. Slavin, Marnook, Stahl. You're going to put yourself in a good spot where you don't have to be the guy. Yeah, you're going to be the superstar, and you could be the guy, but you're going to have a core around you where you could be that both of someone who's going to be, probably the guy for the Hurricanes, but also you have a cast around you that's going to help you benefit from not having all the spotlight on you because you're going to have other guys contributing and doing their thing. So I think for the Hurricanes, it makes sense to go get him because you've got the cap space to do it. Obviously, $28.4 million. you have the money to go give him his contract. If he's projected 12.9 like AFP said, well enough to do it. If you want to go throw 13 at him, that's still a good contract as well. Yeah, it's going to be 7 years, 7 seasons because he's not with the team. They don't have his rights. He can't get that 8th year. But even 7 years, that's still a pretty good contract for Mitch Marner. When you're looking at a guy who's 28, he'll be 35 by the time that's done. But if you look at his goals for percentage, 58.50, I believe, last year, on even strength, over 14.5 minutes per game. Even his Corsi for percentage is about 49.7. You want to be about 50, but that's still really good. And even, too, when you look at his dangerous percentage, 53.50. He is very dangerous when it comes to high danger chances and stuff like that. He averaged 1.26 points per game last year for the Maple Leafs. That would be fantastic to have for the Hurricanes because the Hurricanes haven't had a 100-point guy since Eric Staal. Mitch Marner did it his first time this past season with 102. But every other year, it's high 80s or in the 90s. The Hurricanes would greatly benefit from that. And I know I've already seen on social media, some people are saying, well, the Hurricanes need to get tougher. They need more grit. They need to go get a Robertson because somehow that's a whole thing in Dallas. Or you go and get, like an Alex Tuch out of Buffalo. There's been some, conversations of maybe do you go for Ehlers? Do you go for Brock Besser? And all those guys are great guys too, don't get me wrong. But you can still go get those big physical guys that you really need to help this team out because you have the cap space to do it. And you've got, like I said, a lot of draft capital. You have a lot of draft picks you can go trade. And there's other guys on the roster that you can go possibly trade to if you really want to get those next guys. The Hurricanes have a lot of avenues to go load this roster up with other playmakers, with other big names. It doesn't have to be, okay, this is a one guy we have to sign and that's it. That's our one big name. No, you've got the space to go for more. You don't have to stick to just one guy and that's it. You can go trade for a Tuch, or if you want to go get Thompson, or if you want to go get insert some guy named here that you could go get in a trade. There's even some RFAs coming up that you can go get too, Marco Rossi or whoever. So you're not leveraged on Marner or Bus or Marner or this other guy. You can go do both. And I think if you look at Marner, yes, his playoff numbers aren't great, but like I said, if you give him the change of scenery, the change of mojo, and the fact you insert him into a Hurricanes team that are consistently winning in the playoffs, 7 straight first round wins, 3 Eastern Conference Finals in the last 7 years. And the team just did that with a roster that was considerably weaker than it was last year's. So if you add Marner to that, that'd be a great addition to the team for a guy who consistently is in the 90 to 100 point range. You would insanely take that. And I know some people are going to be saying, oh, well, there's some other guys that are cheaper. Yeah, well, the Hurricanes have never given someone over $10 million in annual average value. They almost did it to Ranton, and he didn't want to stay. But if Marner thinks that Carolina's the good spot for him to do it in, I do not see where the Hurricanes are not going to say no to giving this guy to be the first double-digit $10+ million contract they can give him. And if you can sign up Marner to $12.9 or $13 million for the next 7 seasons, and even when he gets close to 30, like 33, 34, 35, he's still going to give you at least 70 or 80 points, which is still pretty dang good being in that age range. But he's 28. He's in his prime right now. Just had a 100-point season. Outside of a shortened season where he was in the 80-point range in 69 games, he still put up 90 points at least over the last 4 seasons. How would you say no to that? And like I said, you don't have to. It's not just Marner or someone else. You can go get Marner and go get other guys to add to the roster. Like I said, you've got the cap. You've got the draft capital. Go and make a lot of moves. You don't have to do one move in that sig. You can go and get multiple different guys. You can go get the other defenseman you really need if you think Scott Murray needs more time in Chicago. Or you think you need to add another top 6 guy or a second-line center that you need because you don't think just Barry Kotkaniemi is ready for that, which they might be on to a point there. But my main thing is it's not Marner or someone. It could be Marner and someone. So I think that's where people need to take the distinction of it's one or the other, where it's more of it's him and other guys. So that's why I think the Hurricanes should target Mitch Marner, because he would bring a playmaking ability that the Hurricanes have not seen in a long time. And adding him to this roster will take them from being contenders to possibly making the Cup final, which not possibly, have a good chance of making the Cup final for the first time since 2006. That all being said, where would he actually fit in the lineup in terms of top six, power play, and all that? Well, stick around and I'll talk about it here in a second on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we talked about why the Hurricanes are likely fit for Marner. Why should the Carolina Hurricanes go for Mitch Marner? Now the question is, where would he fit in the lineup overall with this Hurricanes team? Well, obviously it's pretty simple when it comes to the top 6. First line right wing. Now, question being is, obviously it's probably going to be Sebastian Aho as your 1C. I know a lot of people are talking about going to get another 1C and put him as the 2C. I don't see that being a thing. They're probably going to get a guy who's a 2C, and Sebastian Aho is going to be your first line center. Now, the real question is, who do you put on the left side with Aho and Marner? If they do bring in Mitch Marner, who's your left winger? Some possibilities is Seth Jarvis or Andrei Svechnikov. Now, if you have a playmaker like Marner, of course, you got the two-way center in Aho. The best possibility is going for the power forward Andrei Svechnikov, because you got a guy who can shoot the puck, but also throw the body as well. And I think when you're looking at a line with a two-way and a playmaker, I think the best possibility for the Hurricanes is that they're your power forward on there who's, like I said, who can score goals like Andrei Svechnikov. That being said, now you're looking at a Jarvis Hall second line on the wings. And tentatively speaking, just Barry Kotkaniemi, unless they don't make other moves, which this will be a conversation for another episode as we get closer towards, the free agency re-sign phase and all that good stuff too, because, trades are probably going to happen at the deadline and even after that going into free agency. So tentatively speaking, just Barry Kotkaniemi is considered the 2C for the Hurricanes. So for this argument, we're saying it's going to be Kotkaniemi, Hall, and Jarvis as your second line. Not bad for the most part. You got to see what your 2C is going to be like, but you have Hall, Jarvis second line. Then you're looking at, that first line of Svechnikov, Aho, and Marner. All things considered, not really bad. That's a pretty solid, pretty great top 6, all things considered. Maybe a couple things one thing you might want to change in there, but then, then you're looking at a third line of Martinook, Stahl, and Stankoven. Obviously, Logan Stankoven did great with the Jordans. Don't see why that needs to change at all. They work great together in the postseason. If you want to run it back with them, run it back with them. Now that leaves your fourth line. As of right now, William Carey still has 5 years left on his contract, so there's your fourth line left winger, a guy you need for the playoffs, and he definitely stepped up in a lot of big hits and a lot of blocks and what you needed for some physicality there. Then you're going to be looking at Mark Jankowski, who did really good for the Hurricanes, all things considered, in the postseason. Of course, he missed some games due to injury and stuff like that, but give him a full offseason with the Hurricanes and a full season. I think if we get relatively, let's see what he does in a full season. We know he scored 8 goals in a short regular season stint with the Hurricanes, but was a full year like for him. And then you look at Jackson Blake as your fourth line right wing. Now, yes, do you really want to put a guy in his second year on the fourth line? Not really. But if you're looking at how the roster is set up, you want to have a guy like Stankoven with the Jordans, and with Jarvis being on the second line right wing, and then Marner on the top right wing spot, that leaves Jackson Blake to the fourth line, which, he still has a 17 goal, 34 point season. Still a good spot for him to be in, to still kind of learn as he grows, because he's still a young guy. He's pretty young. There's no problem putting him on the fourth line, still giving him minutes there and there. And he's still going to get power play minutes for the most part, because he got a lot of it this past season. Now, speaking of the power play, obviously you're going to have Marner on your first power play in it. Now, we saw that it was, Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, gosh, it's Bear. Sometimes it was Blake, sometimes it was other guys up there as well. But if you want to keep that same kind of group, but now you add a Mitch Marner. Now you still have a Svechnikov, Aho, Marner, Jarvis, Gostisbehere. That's a pretty stacked first power play unit. Then you're looking at possibly Hall, Stankoven, probably Nikishin as the second power play guy, which he definitely should be. Then after that, maybe you add a Jackson Blake in there, and then kind of figure out, Mark Jankowski, possibly, just very Kotkaniemi. It'll be interesting how they kind of formulate that second power play unit center. But that's still a pretty decent group overall, too. But this is, like I said, you add Mitch Marner to that first power play unit. And for the team who did pretty well in the postseason in terms of the power play, that's huge. But it's going to be the regular seasons where they're kind of need to take it to the next level, because we all saw they were top 10 for a good part of the season. Then probably like December, January, they kind of really tailed off and finished 25th. So I think this is where, if you add a guy like Mitch Marner on there, who was on a very potent power play unit for the Maple Leafs in the regular season, and even some bits of the Senators series and round one, I think that's might help unlock the power play to where, maybe less stationary, less passes. There might be more of a killer instinct, because Marner is someone who had a lot of killer instinct on the power play for the Leafs. So I think if you add that little bit of an edge, a little bit of a push for Marner onto this first power play, I think that would definitely unlock that group with, like I said, Svech, Aho, Jarvis, Gostisbehere. Now you add Marner in there. That's a pretty potent first power play in it. And it might give the Hurricanes a lot more opportunities to go to that next level in terms of the special teams. So that's where I think it would be a good spot to have him there as well. So then, of course, shootouts, probably Marner's going to be there as well. 4-on-4, first line, no surprise. Talking about overtime, obviously he's probably going to be with the first group. It's probably him, Aho, and Ghost, or those guys in Slavin, or however you want to figure that out. But Mitch Marner's going to be a lot of first line guy. Because you're going to pay this guy $12.913 million. Obviously, you're going to put him on the ice as much as possible, but it's not going to be like where he was in Toronto, where they're probably giving him so much ice time that he's getting tired. You're still going to give him enough minutes to make him be fully going, ready to go all game, but not get burned out really quick. However, how Rod Brind'Amour coaches. Tries to roll 4 lines, give everyone the opportunity. That way every guy is, there's not a top line getting like 25 minutes and your fourth line's getting like 10 or 11. There's going to be some balance there, but I think if you add someone like Marner, that will go a long way. So that's why I think if you put him in the lineup with the Hurricanes going into 25-26, first line right wing, probably going to be with Aho. Do you have that debate if it's going to be Jarvis or Svechnikov? I could probably see Svech being there to give you a little bit of a physical power forward guy on the line with a two-way center like Aho, and that playmaker right wing in Marner. Obviously put him on the first power play in it with, like I said, Aho, Svech, Jarvis, and Gostisbehere. That's a pretty potent first group. And then, of course, you talk about shootouts, overtimes, 4-on-4, extra attacker, stuff like that. He's probably going to be the guy. That being said, I know there's a lot of debate on, should the Hurricanes go for Robertson? Should they go for Besser? Should they go for Ehlers? All those guys are good options. I don't know about the Robertson thing. I know that's been kind of like a weird thing that's been going on for the last couple of days. I don't know how much that's going to be legitimate. We'll see. I know there's, go get Thompson, go get Tuck. I know JJ Peterka is possibly available. All those guys are great. Don't get me wrong. But if you're a likely case to go grab Mitch Marner, I initially said I don't know if he would fit here, but just watching more of his tape, kind of talking to, guys who cover the Maple Leafs a lot more, and, with the hockey writers, and just overall just watching his game, I've kind of talked to myself into, okay, Mitch Marner could be someone the Hurricanes definitely should take a shot at. And if they're able to get him, I think that'll be a big boost to this lineup. So for me, I think the Hurricanes should go get Mitch Marner. And I think with the cap they got, the roster they have, the success, bring him into a situation where he can still be himself, but also be that guy as well. And being in an area where fans will love you as a diehard fan, but also give you your space as well to let you live your life. Let me know if you are on YouTube. Let me know in the comments what you think. Would you go for Mitch Marner for the Carolina Hurricanes, or do you think it should go for someone else? But it should be interesting. We're at least a month away or less from free agency. We'll go from there and see how that works out come July 1st. But until then, this will be the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where you can check the link trees in my bios and where you can also check all of my written content over at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. If you want to check out this podcast, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes on Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating or review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up, tell me know if you like the show as well. Share it with other KX so they become everydayers just like you. And like I said in the comments, would you go for Mitch Marner if you're the Carolina Hurricanes? If not, who would you target instead? But hope everyone enjoyed this Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Tuesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.